What happens when a son becomes the very thing he feared? On a seemingly ordinary night, Levi Davis found himself in a hospital bed, handcuffed and injured, but the real shock, earlier that day, he committed a horrific crime that shattered his family forever. Stay tuned as we dive into the chilling details of this tragic story, exploring the events that led to a mother's death and a son's arrest. Every night in the US, many people who have been arrested are taken to hospitals for medical care. Some might be hurt from a fight, an accident, or injuries they caused themselves, including ones they got during their arrest. On this particular night, Levi Davis was brought in because of a serious leg injury. The police officer with him couldn't tell the doctors what crime Levi was accused of, but made sure he was securely handcuffed to the bed. Earlier that day, Levi had committed a shocking crime. He killed his own mother, Collie Cantrell, leaving her in a pool of blood. Before we continue, we want to share our heartfelt condolences to Collie's family and friends. Collie was a caring mother and active member of her community. Now, let's go back to the events leading up to the crime. Around 3:30 p.m. on October 10, 2020, in Middleton, Idaho, a 911 call was made. A man called, saying he had just come home and found his wife unresponsive, lying in blood. He was panicked and unsure where the blood was coming from. The 911 operator guided him to check on her, asking if there were any weapons around. As the call continued, he realized something terrible had happened, and police were sent right away. Middleton police arrived quickly at the house on Myrtle Lake Street. Inside, they found the man, Kevin Klein, distressed and leading them to his wife, Collie Cantrell. She was the mother of 4 and a leader at the local Humane Society. Sadly, she was dead in a large pool of blood. The house showed signs of a violent struggle, with bloody footprints leading to the garage. The family's dogs were locked outside, looking in through the glass door at the tragic scene. As officers secured the crime scene, Kevin shared that he had left for work that morning around 7:30 a.m. and his 2 sons went to school at the same time. Later, one of the boys texted Collie because he forgot something at home, but she never responded. When asked who might want to hurt her, Kevin said it was likely her oldest son, Levi Davis, who had been told to leave their house and return to a halfway home. Levi had a long history of legal troubles and often fought with his mother. Police began searching the neighborhood for clues, hoping to find security cameras that might show who came to or left the house. A neighbor reported seeing Levi's car that morning, but didn't see him in person. The car was a small, beat-up blue Chevy. Around 9 a.m., the car was gone, and the neighbor thought it was odd to see Levi's car there after so much time away. Further down the street, another neighbor's security camera caught Levi's car speeding away from the house around 8:20 a.m. The police now had a key piece of evidence. They obtained search warrants for Levi's phone and belongings. They also checked a storage unit Kevin had set up for Levi when he was asked to leave. Video footage from the storage facility showed Levi's car, helping police track his movements that day. With interviews, security footage, and tracking Levi's car and phone, the police built a timeline of the crime and figured out where Levi had been. Witnesses from the halfway house and Levi's friends helped piece together his attempt to run away from the scene and create an alibi. In the first half of the day, Levi seemed panicked, but later he acted as if he was just enjoying a day off. Here's the rewritten version of the text in simpler words. The police put together a timeline showing that Levi was at his mother's house before 8 a.m. A neighbor saw his car in the driveway, but by 9 a.m., it was gone. A doorbell camera caught his car leaving the area at 8:20 a.m. Levi then went to a friend's house, Larry Lucero. He walked in without knocking. Larry's wife, Sonia, noticed Levi looked very pale and worried, and his jeans were covered in blood. Larry asked what happened, and Levi said he had hurt himself and needed to shower. Larry said no, and Levi even offered money to use the shower, but Larry still refused and made him leave. Next, Levi drove to the Viking mini storage, arriving around 10:22 a.m. Security cameras showed him driving to the unit he rented. Needing to change out of his bloody clothes, Levi went into the unit to change. Nearby, another person was putting things in their own unit, unaware of what was happening. Levi put his bloody clothes and shoes into a box. After changing, he got back in his car but realized his leg was still bleeding. So, he went back to change again before leaving. His car was later seen by license plate readers around the town. Afterward, Levi picked up a friend and they decided to get haircuts. Banking records and the store's system showed they spent over an hour at the shop. Levi even paid for both haircuts and left a nice tip. Then they decided to go to the movies. On the way, they stopped at a convenience store where Levi, limping, used the ATM and bought some energy drinks. An hour later, they were at a movie theater in Nampa, Idaho, watching the horror movie Barbarian. They watched the movie until 11:45 p.m., then went their separate ways. Levi returned to the halfway house, checked in, and called it a night. But he didn't know that the Violent Offenders Task Force was waiting for him. Officers rushed in, and with a dog assisting, they arrested him, blocking any escape. This is how Levi Davis ended up in the emergency room that night, handcuffed to a hospital bed while waiting to get stitches for his leg. 2 detectives began questioning him after reading his rights. Levi didn't ask for a lawyer, but pretended to be sleepy and tried to doze off during the interview. His plan didn't work. One of the detectives started by asking Levi if he knew why they were there. They told him they knew he had been at his mother's house earlier that day and that something bad had happened there. The detective told Levi that his mother was dead and asked him to explain what happened. Levi didn't react much to the news of his mother's death. The detective kept pressing, saying they knew there had been an argument and that Levi had made some bad choices. But Levi stayed quiet, barely responding, not even looking at the text. The detective asked Levi if the people who saw him were just imagining things. He questioned why Levi wasn't showing much emotion about his mother's death. Then, he asked to see the wound on Levi's leg and wanted to talk about what happened. The detective said he understood that things can sometimes get out of control, and he wanted Levi to explain what happened. But Levi didn't say much and stayed quiet. The detectives pushed harder, telling Levi that his story didn't match the evidence. They mentioned that even his friends were giving them information about him. They asked Levi why he went to a friend's house covered in blood, but Levi kept saying he didn't know. The detectives were frustrated because Levi was acting like nothing had happened, pretending to be sleepy and claiming innocence. The detective reminded Levi that his mom was dead and asked if he would talk to his family about it. Levi still didn't respond. The detective pressed on, saying that Levi's mom had been killed and asking why he didn't call for help. He also said Levi's actions, like not calling an ambulance, didn't make sense. The detectives knew they had evidence, like blood and footprints in the house, linking Levi to the crime. They also found blood smears and bloody clothes in Levi's car. The forensic experts were finding more and more evidence, but Levi continued to deny involvement. Eventually, the detective told Levi that he was going to jail. He said Levi could have changed the outcome by telling the truth, but now it was too late. Levi didn't respond, and the conversation ended. That night, Levi was taken to jail, and DNA tests were done to compare his blood with the samples found at the crime scene and on his clothes. Later, Levi admitted to what he had done and pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for killing his mother, Carly Cantrell. In 2023, Levi was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 40 years before he could be considered for parole. His mother had been the executive director of the West Valley Humane Society. In one tragic morning, Levi destroyed his family, took his mother's life, and sealed his fate. We may never fully understand why he did it, whether it was due to an argument, a need for drug money, or simply losing control. But we will always remember the impact of that terrible day. Levi Davis's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly lives can change. Our thoughts are with Carly Cantrell's family in the wake of this tragedy. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Join us next time for more gripping true crime tales.